History was made today here on Capitol Hill. I'm Joe Khalil. We'll take you through as President Trump becomes the first president ever to be impeached twice.
Instead of creating or even saving American jobs or negotiating additional COVID relief, we're debating an impeachment that's been preceded by no inquiry, no meaningful debate, and no due process.
Stand up, man up, woman up, and defend this Constitution from all enemies, foreign and domestic, including Donald J. Trump.
We're going to take you through the historic vote, everything that happened on the floor today, and where the efforts to remove President Trump go from here. Marnie, Joe.
That is News Nation Washington correspondent Joe Khalil on the heels of an historic impeachment vote following a violent siege on the U.S. Capitol. Good evening, everyone. I'm Joe Donlin.
And I'm Marnie Hughes. It comes as the threat of more violent protests has changed the landscape of Washington, D.C. We are live in the nation's capital tonight. Layers of security already in place. And across the United States, law enforcement also on high alert leading up to Inauguration Day.
More on that just a few minutes. First, though, a video message from President Trump tonight as 10 House Republicans joined Democrats voting to impeach him. Among them, the third-ranking GOP leader, Representative Liz Cheney of Wyoming, who said, quote, "There has never been a greater betrayal by a president." Let's get right back to Joe Khalil tonight with more on what happens next and also the response that we mentioned from the president. Joe?
Yeah, Joe, and a lot of history has been made here on Capitol Hill. In just a week's time, we had that rush of the Capitol, an invasion, which quite literally we hadn't seen in this building in centuries. And that leads up to the historic vote today, a bipartisan vote, mind you, on the path now to remove President Trump from office while he has just days left in his term.
The motion to reconsider is laid upon the table.
With the pound of the gavel, President Trump becomes the first president in history to be impeached twice.
The President of the United States incited this insurrection, this armed rebellion against our common country.
Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi laid out the case against the president. She said the rioters who stormed the Capitol came at the president's urging.
They were sent here by the president with words such as a cry to fight like hell. He must go. He is a clear and present danger to the nation that we all love.
But it is never too late to do the right thing.
House Majority Leader Steny Hoyer said President Trump must be removed despite having just days left in his term. Hoyer says he served under 3 Republican presidents who never violated their oaths of office.
That is not true of this president. And therefore, he ought to be removed.
Among the 232 votes to impeach President Trump, 10 came from Republicans. House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy never asked his members to back the president.
The president bears responsibility for Wednesday's attack on Congress by mob rioters. He should have immediately denounced the mob.
But McCarthy says impeachment goes too far and will further divide an already split nation.
Instead, we must unite once again as Americans.
Still, a smaller group of Republicans say President Trump is not to blame at all for the Capitol riot.
Some have cited the metaphor that the president lit the flame. Well, they lit actual flames, actual fires.
In a heated moment, Republican Matt Gaetz defended the president and compared the Capitol riot to unrest in cities last summer. Most Republicans, however, did not defend the president's actions, but rather called this impeachment rushed and divisive.
Today I am calling on all Americans to overcome the passions of the moment and join together as one American people.
In the face of defections and in the wake of the vote, late today, President Trump called for calm in a video message.
No true supporter of mine could ever threaten or harass their fellow Americans.
Now, we didn't know that there were going to be 10 defections on the GOP side that would actually vote for impeachment until the vote actually happened today. And that's significant because we haven't seen that in the past 4 years, frankly, and it may be an indication of where the party is going, already thinking about moving forward and sort of distancing itself from President Trump, guys.
And Joe, we know the impeachment charge now headed to the Senate. So I think the question of the moment is, when are they planning to take it up in the Senate?
So now that the House has actually voted to do this impeachment, they decide when to hand the impeachment over to the Senate And once the Senate receives it, they have to almost immediately, within 24 hours, start the proceedings. The thing is, the Senate has to actually be here for that to happen. They are not here now. And Mitch McConnell sent a letter to his GOP colleagues saying that they're not going to come back any earlier to receive the impeachment. So whenever they come back, it's going to be up to the House. We haven't had clarification exactly on when that's going to happen. So keep an eye on whenever the Senate does come back, the House will then make a decision on when to present the article.
Joe, you mentioned the 10 in the House, Republicans who voted yes. The question now is what happens in the Senate. There are a few we've heard from, but they need 17.
Yeah, and it's going to be quite a thing to get 17 GOP senators. It's not certainly going to be easy. We did hear one Republican senator who said yesterday, without giving their name, that if Mitch McConnell ends up voting for impeachment in the Senate for removal, that 17 others may fall. He could be the domino. We know, again, 4 or 5 who've been open to it, who've considered it, but we're going to have to see as Mitch McConnell goes, so may go the rest of his party.
And speaking of McConnell, that really is the wild card in all of this. There's been reporting out there since yesterday that he did support impeachment. He did release a statement today, but did not say if he's leaning one way or the other in terms of a conviction. During the first impeachment, he was adamantly against the entire process. So he's been much less vocal and much more opaque this time around. Is there any sense of what he wants to do? Because there is reporting to suggest that he wants a clean break between Trump and the Republican Party for the future of the party, which would suggest he may go ahead and push for a conviction. As you said, as Mitch goes, so does the Senate.
Yeah, Rob, I think it's significant that he came out publicly and said that he's not made up his mind yet. Just that in itself is significant because, as you point out, this first round of impeachment a year ago, many Republican senators were very upfront that they are not going to be supporting it in any way. So already that says something. Mitch McConnell is very savvy, and quite frankly, if he didn't want it to be let out to the media that he was pleased that Democrats are pursuing impeachment, it would not have gotten out. So read into that what you will, but I think that's certainly a statement, and you take Mitch McConnell at his word that he has not made a decision yet. But again, significant that we're even having a conversation about 4 or 5 senators and potentially 10 or so more if Mitch McConnell goes one way. Different scenario and a different reality, frankly, than what we were dealing with a year ago under President Trump.